So what exactly is a follow focus unit? Well, as the name implies, it is a way to control the focus of a lens, and in particular, a manual lens. And in this case, I'm using it on a B-script setup. This is an iPhone rig, but this isn't a normal iPhone rig, obviously. It's got a beast cage, a beast grip DOF adapter. I've got a manual lens on here and rails. This is more of a cinema setup. However, obviously this would apply to any kind of camera. I'm just demonstrating it right now on this rig. And this particular follow focus is from SmallRig. It's an F40, it's a mini follow focus. And so it's designed to work with smaller setups. However, it can work with larger setups too. The nice thing about this type of a rig is it swings out. And so you mount it to a rail and then you can position it depending on how big the lens is. And you use gears. Some cinema lenses will have gears built in, but photo lenses like this, you use an attachment and wrap a gear around it, and then it makes contact with the actual gear here on the follow focus, and that is how it manually adjusts the focus. So you position it like so and lock it down. And so if this was a wider lens, you'd be able to pull it out further, or if it was a smaller lens. This is a pretty small lens. And then you have a focus wheel here to be able to do focus pulls, rack focus, etc. And what I like about this F40 from SmallRig is, number one, it's super affordable. It's $100 or under. I actually got this on sale from B&H for $79. This is a very quality piece of kit for that price in particular. A lot of follow focus will cost $500, $600, even several $1,000s depending on what you're getting. The other thing I like about this is it has hard stops you can adjust here. And so when you're using some lenses, especially photo lenses that are focused by wire, in other words, the focus spins constantly, you can use these stops to then have a stop. That way, when you're focusing, you could set a mark, especially if you're working by yourself, you set a focus mark, and then when you spin it, you'll hit it. This could be A, and that could be B. And of course, if you're working with a focus puller, you've got a ring here, and you can write on this with a marker, with a dry erase marker or a grease pencil, and put focus marks on this actual ring. But if you're a solo shooter, again, you can just release these and set it. Let's say that's my first mark. And then I want to do a pull down to here. I set that right there. Now when I spin it, got a hard stop. And so you can easily pull focus without having to look down at a mark or have a second person, a focus puller, with you. This unit also comes with a small rod that you can mount onto a cage if you don't want to use a full rail system. And so that's nice because then you can keep the setup more compact. You can mount the rail to the top of your rig or to the side, and depending on the size of the lens, this can work really well. So again, you don't always have to use a rail system to use a follow focus. And that can be nice, especially if you're doing more run and gun type situations. And so you might be saying to yourself, why do manual focus today? Autofocus is so good. Well, and that's true, but it depends on what you're shooting. If you're doing solo YouTube stuff, then yeah, you would want to use an autofocus lens if you have that available. And of course, with a phone, if you didn't have this rig on here, it would be autofocus. You wouldn't have to worry about it. However, with traditional cameras and even phones, if you rig it up like this, and if you're shooting something like a movie or a commercial or any kind of narrative type project, even a music video, more times than not, you want to be able to pull focus, rack focus, manually focus your lens. Multiple reasons why, the main one being just control, because autofocus is just that, it's automatic. And so while it's very good today, especially on the newer generation of mirrorless cameras, it's not exactly easy to dictate when or where it's going to lock on. Yes, you can aim the camera. Yes, some systems have touch screens and they work very well. But on some jobs where you're racking from one point to another, you really can't beat doing a manual focus pull. Keep in mind that the advent of autofocus in professional filmmaking is relatively new. When I started back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the idea of using autofocus was super taboo. You would never do it. As a matter of fact, when DSLRs came around in 2007, 8, 9, 10 range, it was hard for me to transition over to trying autofocus. And really, until the later mirrorless cameras came out, I still never did it. Now, especially again on YouTube, and the Sony mirrorless cameras are so good, I use autofocus all the time on YouTube. But when I make movies or music videos or commercials, autofocus is almost never on. The one exception might be if I'm doing a gimbal shot. Gimbal shots can be great for using autofocus, especially if you're shooting as a one-man band. However, on larger shoots and in those situations, you'll likely have a wireless follow focus system and a focus puller watching a monitor while you're walking around. I know it may be hard for some of you guys to wrap your head around not using autofocus, but for us that have been doing this for a while, the idea of using autofocus was really hard to wrap our head around. That almost is like using auto exposure. Now again, times have changed. Autofocus has a lot of good benefits, but using a follow focus unit, again, depending on the project, is still very important and very commonly done in the filmmaking world. So if you've ever wanted a follow focus but thought they were too expensive, I definitely recommend checking out this one from SmallRig, or there's a similar mini follow focus from Tilted that's very popular, and it's also around $100 depending on when you're buying it. This one's so small, you can easily drop it in your bag. You don't have to leave it connected all the time. And because the price point is so low, there's really no reason not to have one of these in your filmmaking kit. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Blake Calhoun. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.